So, little adjustment. Remember, just extend a little bit. It can be a 1/4 inch. You can make them go as far out as you want. We're gonna do the same thing with the hair. Remember, this is kind of an envelope, but this time you're extending your lines as far as you can and going back to practicing holding the pencil further back. So I think this should be here. So notice I'm covering this line that I initially put in, and this is what's going to help kind of give you your proportions and some of your flow again. So a lot of what we practice is straight lines and then curved lines and then more straight lines. And think about this angle. And then this is a straight line. This is a rather long neck. 1, 2. Continue this line and then curvature. And then a 3rd one right there. One. You see how some of them kind of overlap or they intersect? Hair just behind here. Here. And again, it's not that I need it to be perfect, but this is definitely going to help with refinement. So hopefully you can see that okay. I want to let the light adjust. Okay, let's plot what will be the beginning of the features. So again, we're looking at this angle. So now I'm paying attention to this, okay, and it's got a downward cast. So this is where it's helpful to use kind of the broad side of the pencil, right, because that spans the width of the eyebrow. And again, we're not really going to get into detail. We just want to figure out how much we can do with straight lines and kind of drawing past. Think of this as a kind of exercise in angularity, or what eventually will be planar analysis. Planar meaning P-L-A-N-A-R, which means planes. So these are all different planes of surfaces. Look at this area. Okay, so here's kind of the trick. Well, it's not really a trick, but the idea is to do like 10, 12, 15 heads and bring them to this level of finish, um, because this is really an investigation in terms of angles, proportion, and then also getting better at holding the pencil further back. So now I'm plotting this, which is my shadow shape. While I'm at it, Just a little more shadow work. Okay, and remember these are just exercises, so the idea isn't to really introduce shading. We'll do that in another video, but this is really just where you get a lot of your practice. This is where you start to talk about likeness, proportions, and we're just doing something that is going to help accuracy, and we're doing this in a kind of angular way on purpose. Let's see, where else can we plot maybe a shadow shape here. And if you remember the video of the man with the hat, this is a really similar approach. But notice that when I'm plotting something that's a little soft, I want to do this lighter in case I need to go in and erase. And also as a reminder that some of these edges have to be lighter. Okay, so I mean that's the gist of this, is to start with lines that are somewhat extending, and you know, we revisit some of the things that you already know from like drawing 1, and then think of this as drawing 2, revisiting concepts of drawing 1 and refining some of those things and going back and fixing proportion issues, getting better at your shapes, concentrating on the large shapes, and then breaking them down into complex, smaller shapes. But I can't stress enough that holding the pencil further back, especially when you're doing the majority of your large shapes, is going to be really helpful. And even you can hold the pencil as far back as this for the majority of the drawing, actually, and then standing back. I actually have this on an easel. I'm standing back at least my arm's length so I can get a comparison. So we'll do a couple more in other videos, and then once you get the hang of this, you'll see it's the approach is pretty much the same no matter what. One other thing that I want to mention is part of what's happening here with the face is kind of a simple, this will be a simplified concept, is really what we're looking at again is think of the head as not necessarily a box, but box-like, right? Something that you can manipulate. Okay, so it's got a front. This would be the side. Okay. This is the side plane. So think of this as a box to start with, right? And it's got a side plane like this. Okay. And then there's another box that you can pinch into whatever form, and then yet another box. Okay. Now what we have is, let's say you can go in to the box and either pinch it, or if you think of this as a piece of clay, like a piece of plastilina or something like that, and you go in and you're carving away the excess. Hopefully this analogy makes sense, because what I'm trying to convey really is dimensionality. once you can start sort of conceiving of things in this way, right, that forms that protrude, if you think of this in terms of boxes, or if you think of it in terms of clay, it doesn't matter, whatever gets the concept through. There's forms that protrude and there's forms that recede. And the sooner you can understand these concepts, the more, or I should say, the faster you'll be able to adapt some of these ideas. And I think that those are the things that demystify. Apologize, that was not in frame. Those are some of the things that demystify what a face is, what a head is. You can also try, so if this box thing, I should probably do another one in case you didn't see that, if it was off frame. So, box concept, okay, and it doesn't necessarily mean that things have to stay inside the box. It just means that you're thinking in terms of volume and dimension. Okay. And again, when we talk about what things protrude, if you ever take a piece of clay and you can gouge out, so this becomes a depression or a cavity, and then you have to bring this forward. Okay. And this is what's at the root of drawing a face, is really understanding the basic concept of this. Now you could also use a combination of a box or an egg. Some people really like the egg idea, and it's the same thing. It doesn't really matter. Egg or box or rectangle. I sometimes will use the egg thing if the person's face has an oval shape to it. So you can see how this is different than this one. And again, if you're talking about light and shadow, right? So very easily now we can address things without actually seeing them. And they'll have some degree of believability. Same thing here. Once you build your form, right, you can take your cues from what you understand about boxes, if that makes sense. And a lot of this comes from just observation, and then also understanding of how solid forms act in space with light on them. So, there you have it. Hopefully you found this helpful. We'll do some more.